What's up, everybody? My name is Logan Sherrill, and welcome to CTF Sherrill Talks Football. Today, I'm going to be giving you guys my Week 12 NFL reactions. There's a lot of football to talk about, so let's not waste too much time. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of my videos whenever I post. With all out of the way, let's get started. So the first game we got was Thursday Night Football. It was the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Cleveland Browns. Going into this game, I was not expecting anything other than a Steelers blowout win, and I was shocked to my very eyes. This was a very good game, and the Browns got the upset. Plus, this is a really fun game to watch too. Like it was pretty clear, kind of slow going in the first half, and then the second half rolls in. It's heavy snowing out. It was such a good time to watch. Looking at the Browns here, James did pretty good, only throwing for 219 passing yards, not a single touchdown, but threw a pick. Rushing was actually pretty decent. Nick Chubb had himself a pretty decent game. 20 carries for 59 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, production-wise, he was pretty lousy, but 2 touchdowns, that's good to see. And then receiving was led by Jerry Jeudy with 6 receptions, 85 yards, no score. And then looking at the Browns defense here, they were highlighted with 4 sacks, 3 of them being by Myles Garrett. I honestly don't know what I'm doing. Like, I usually go over the losing team first, but I went over the winning team first, but let's just ignore that. Let's go over the Steelers here. Russell Wilson actually put himself a pretty decent game. 21 for 28, 270 passing yards, 1 touchdown, not a single turnover. Rushing was extremely lousy. It was led by Jaylen Warren with 11 carries, 45 yards, and a touchdown. Other than that, really nothing going with rushing. And then receiving was led by Calvin Austin with 3 receptions, 78 yards, and a touchdown. Receiving was very slow with George Pickens in this game. And then the Steelers' defense shockingly did not do much, and it only had a highlight of a sack and a pick in this game. So yeah, this was a really fun game to watch, and the Browns got a very much needed win. Next game we got was the Titans versus the Texans, and this was the best game of the week in my opinion. Like, most of these games were kind of mid, to be honest, but like this one, I really didn't expect much, but it put on a show. But one thing I just don't understand by the Texans this year, like one thing I just can't stand, is how with this much talent do they struggle this much, man? Like, look at C.J. Stroud. 347 yards, 2 touchdowns, that's great. But threw 2 interceptions, bro. Like, he went from barely throwing picks to, like, throwing at least 2 picks a game. Like, it's so weird. And then rushing was awful. Joe Mixon didn't do a single thing out there. Like, it was so weird. And then you look at receiving. Nico Collins had a great day. 5 receptions, 92 yards, and a touchdown. Cade Stover had a receiving touchdown. And Tank Dell did pretty well. But, like, I feel like they should be throwing to Dalton Schultz a little bit more, man. Like, he's still got talent. And then you look at the Texans' defense here. Danielle Hunter was amazing. He had 3 sacks. Look at Alshire. He had a sack, too. Jimmy Ward had a pick. Like, they were making plays, but they still find a way to lose. And then when you look at the Titans, the Texans made Will Levis look like a Pro Bowler. 278 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. Tony Pollard went off, 24 carries for 119 yards and a touchdown. Really big coincidence when the first week I dropped Tony Pollard and trade him away. Like, that's crazy. And then receiving was led by Calvin Ridley with 5 receptions, 93 yards, not a score. But Chigoziem Okwano had a receiving touchdown, and Nick Westbrook-Akeen had a touchdown. And then you look at the Titans defense, they're making plays all over the place. They had 4 sacks and 2 picks. Like, the Texans' offensive line is terrible, man. Like, it has to be studied. It's just so frustrating to watch the Texans, bro. Like, they have all the talent in the world, but they always seem to play down the competition and look like shit. Like, if they play like this in the playoffs, they're one and done. Like, they're gonna stand no chance. Next game we got is the Vikings at the Bears, and this was another crazy game at the end. Like, this was just a nail-biter. Like, you look at Caleb Williams here, 32 for 47, 340 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He finally had his best game in a few weeks, it feels like. Rushing was absolutely terrible. Caleb Williams led it with 6 carries, 33 yards. Rashawn Johnson did get a touchdown. And then receiving was led by DJ Moore with 7 receptions, 106 yards, and a touchdown. Keenan Allen finally having a good game with 9 receptions, 86 yards, and a touchdown. And then when you look at the Bears defense, they highlighted with 3 sacks on the day. Now when we look at the Vikings, Sam Darnold had a fantastic game. 22 for 34, 330 yards, 2 touchdowns, not a single turnover. He did get hurt towards the end of the game, but I have a feeling he came back. I think he did. Yeah, they were in overtime. He was good. Aaron Jones had a great game. 22 carries for 106 yards and a touchdown. He had a fantastic game. against a very good rush defense too. Like, that's one thing that's pretty impressive. You look at the receiving, it's all over the place. Jordan Addison led with 8 receptions, 162 yards, and a touchdown. He had a big game. T.J. Hawkinson had 7 receptions for 114 yards. And then, shockingly, Justin Jefferson was extremely quiet. And then you look at the Vikings defense, they really did not do much other than having 3 sacks on the day. But yeah, mostly came down to the end. Got close with a field goal. Bears kicked the onside kick, got the ball, went all the way down the field, kick a field goal to go to overtime. Just come short in overtime. Like, it sucked. So the Bears end up with another heartbreaking loss to another division rival. Like, I really just don't know what to say. Like, the Bears' playoff hopes are getting thinner and thinner. Next game we got is the Cowboys at the Commanders, and the end of this game was some of the craziest football I think I've ever watched in my life. So this game started off extremely slow, like one of the most boring games of the week. And then then the second half rolls in, mostly the fourth quarter. It starts becoming a nail-biter. Like, the Commanders start coming back because the Commanders played like shit all game. And then the Cowboys still find ways to score somehow. Like, this is the best scoring like the Cowboys have had in weeks. And it was just a nail-biter. And then with 12 seconds left, it looked like the Commanders just won the game. Or they're starting to like tie the game. And then the freaking kicker missed it. Like, the PAT. Cedar missed it. Like, it was crazy. So the Commanders kick an onside kick. They score on the onside kick. Like, it was some crazy stuff. But yeah, looking at these teams, Jayden Daniels played pretty decent. 275 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 turnovers. That's not good to see. Rushing was led by Jayden Daniels with 7 carries, 74 yards, and a touchdown. Receiving was led by Terry McLaurin with 5 receptions, 102 yards, and a touchdown. Zach Ertz had a receiving touchdown as well. And then the Commanders' defense only got to Cooper Rush once this whole game. And then you look at the Cowboys here. Cooper Rush, decent game, 24 for 32, 247 yards, 2 touchdowns on a single turnover. Rushing was actually half decent with Rico Dowell. 19 carries, 86 yards, not a single score, but pretty good yards production-wise. And then receiving was led by CeeDee Lamb with 10 receptions, 67 yards, not a single score, but Luke Schoonmaker had a receiving touchdown, and Jalen Tolbert had a receiving touchdown. And then the Cowboys defense actually played a half-decent game for once. 4 sacks and 1 pick. Like, that's the most production I've seen out of them since week 1. But the real MVP of this game, like, you have to give it to KaVontae Turpin, the kick returner. He went crazy. He had 4 returns, 179 yards, and a touchdown. Like, he went crazy. And then you got to give props to Juwanye Thomas with the touchdown on that onside kick. Like, that was a crazy play. But KaVontae Turpin's touchdown on a kick return, it was so crazy. Like, if I could, but because of reasons, I can't show you the play. Like, I really want to. But it was some crazy stuff. You got to go back and watch it. But yeah, I know I've been blabbering on about this game, but this was actually a crazy game at the end, and I just wanted to talk about it just to get my thoughts out. Alright, so now that we got all the crazy exciting games out of the way, now we have to get to the boring stuff. First off with the Patriots at the Dolphins. Like, I feel embarrassed for even picking the Patriots to win this game. Like, they looked absolutely putrid. Like, this is one of those games you really can't pay attention to stats. Like, Drake May looked terrible despite his stats. Like, he played a terrible game. Antonio Gibson leading rushing. Overall, it was terrible. Like, rushing was awful. And then receiving did absolutely nothing other than Austin Hooper getting a receiving touchdown. And then the Patriots defense only had a total of 1 sack. Like, I know I just breezed through the Patriots super quick, but that's all I need to do. Like, there's absolutely nothing to talk about this team this week. But if you look at the Dolphins, there's a little more to talk about. Like, looking at Tua, he had a fantastic game. 29 for 40, 317 yards, 4 touchdowns, not a single turnover. He had a great game. Rushing was shockingly terrible. Like, Devon Achane did nothing. And then the highlight of the game was Jalen Waddle. Like, he went crazy in this game. 8 receptions, 144 yards, and a touchdown. Jonnu Smith also had a receiving touchdown. Devon Achane had 2 receiving touchdowns. And then you look at the Dolphins' defense. They were all over the place, having 4 sacks on the game. So, yeah, complete domination by the Dolphins. I'm embarrassed even picking the Patriots in this game. And by the looks of it, the Dolphins are now 5-6, and they are starting to make a slow comeback. Next game we got was the Chiefs at the Panthers. I guess I forgot to count this game when I said that we got all the exciting stuff out of the way, because this game was exciting. Like, I wanted the Panthers to beat the Chiefs so bad, but I just knew in my gut, in my head, that the NFL even was not going to let the Chiefs lose to the Panthers. All jokes aside, I just knew the Panthers just did not have enough in the tank to beat the Chiefs in this one, no matter how close this game was. Looking at the Panthers here, the legendary Bryce Young threw for 21 for 35, 263 yards, 1 touchdown, not throwing a single turnover. Chuba Hubbard was pretty decent in the rushing, 16 carries for 58 yards and a touchdown. And then receiving was led by David Moore with 6 receptions, 81 yards and a touchdown. And also good to note that Adam Thielen is back, and he had a pretty decent game with 57 receiving yards. And one thing that's crazy to see is that the Panthers defense got to Patrick Mahomes 5 times in this game. Like, they outdid themselves. They played a great game. But still, it wasn't enough to beat the Chiefs here. Mahomes played a pretty good game. 27 for 37, 269 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 picks. Rushing was shockingly kind of lousy. Kareem Hunt led with 16 carries for 68 yards. Like, really not much to talk about. And then receiving was led by Noah Gray, out of all people. 4 receptions, 66 yards, 2 touchdowns. DeAndre Hopkins had a receiving touchdown as well. And then looking at the Chiefs' defense, they only had a total of 2 sacks on the day. Like, actually really bad compared to Chiefs standards. Like, they really did not do much. So, yeah, sorry, Carolina. I wanted you to win this game really badly, but you just could not get it done at the end. Like, that sucks. Next game, we got the Bucs at the Giants, and I really just don't know what to say about this game. Like, the Giants looked absolutely pathetic in this game. Like, they looked embarrassingly bad. Like, they looked so bad that it reminded me of the 2021 Giants. Like, it was that bad. But looking at the Giants here first, just so we can get out of the way, Tommy DeVito really did not do a thing. There's really not much to talk about. Rushing did not do anything either. And then looking at receiving, other than Malik Neighbors, nobody did anything. And then you look at the Giants' defense, guess what? They didn't do anything. Like, just like the rest of the team, they did not do anything. I was wondering how they got their one and only touchdown. I forgot to see Devin Singletary had a rushing touchdown, but he didn't do anything either. Now we're getting to the team I actually care about. Baker Mayfield actually played pretty decent. 24-30, 294 yards. No score here, but he had a good game passing-wise. This is kind of interesting. Every single rusher you see on this list has a rushing touchdown, but it was led by Bucky Irving with 12 carries and 87 yards and a touchdown. Rachaad White had a rushing touchdown. Baker Mayfield had a rushing touchdown. And their fullback, Sean Tucker, had a rushing touchdown. Like, it was actually kind of interesting. And then receiving was led by the returning Mike Evans with 5 receptions, 68 yards, and not a single score from any receiver because most of their touchdowns were by their running backs. And then looking at the Buccaneers defense, they got to Tommy DeVito a total of 4 times in this game. So congrats on the Bucs for getting a much needed win, and also congrats to the Giants. You are now the worst team in the NFL. Next game, we got the Lions at the Colts, and I gotta say, this was probably the most boring game of the week, like, that I've watched, personally. Like, even the Lions, like, they were pretty slow to their standards. Like, they still won easily, but, like, they just did not look the greatest. Like, I knew the Colts were gonna put up a fight, but I don't know, just something was off about him in this game. Looking at Anthony Richardson here for the Colts, he was okay. 11 for 28, 172 yards, not a single score or pick. Rushing was also led by Anthony Richardson, 10 carries for 61 yards, no touchdowns by any running back. Jonathan Taylor was pretty terrible. And then receiving was led by Michael Pittman with 6 receptions, 96 yards, and no score. Like, there was no scores from the Colts offensively all game. And then looking at the Colts defense here, they got to Jared Goff 3 times in this game. And then one thing to note, Matt Gay kicked every single one of the Colts' points in this game. Like, it was all their kicker. And then now looking at the Lions, Jared Goff played a pretty decent game. 26 for 36, 269 yards, no touchdowns, no turnovers. Rushing was led by Jahmyr Gibbs with 21 carries, 90 yards, 2 touchdowns. David Montgomery had a rushing touchdown. And then receiving was led by Jameson Williams with 5 receptions, 64 yards, and no score. I didn't realize Amon-Ra St. Brown lost his streak of a touchdown each game. That sucks to see. And then you look at the Lions' defense. Their defense, sack and interception-wise, was a giant goose egg. Like, that's kind of weird. So, yeah, this was an incredibly boring game, but the Lions still got the win. Now we're getting to the afternoon games. First, we got the Broncos at the Raiders, and This was a good win for the Broncos, but I got something to say about them in this game. I mean, they still won by 10 points, but they should have blown this team out of the water. Like, the Raiders were an absolute mess in this game. They've been an absolute mess this whole season. So I was expecting a blowout from the Broncos, and they really underperformed. And they're starting to get to that playoff status now. Like, this is just stuff that you have to, like, talk about nowadays. Like, if they play like this in the playoffs, they're not going to show much of a fight. Like, they're not really expected to win a playoff game, but you're expected to at least show a little bit of fight in a playoff game. And if you play like this, you're not going to show any. But that's my little nitpick on it. Other than that, they had a good win. Let's go over the Raiders real quick. Looking at the Raiders here, Gardner Minshew did not have a great game. 25 for 42, 230 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, and also 1 broken collarbone. That sucks, man. I know I've given Gardner Minshew a lot of shit for not playing great this season, but I actually really like Gardner Minshew, so I just wanted to see him do well, and just to hear he got a broken collarbone, he's done, like, that really sucks. Especially the fact that the Raiders' offense just got even worse. Like, now they're going to have to deal with either Desmond Ridder or Aiden O'Connell. Ugh. And then rushing was terrible as usual. And then receiving was led by Jacoby Myers with 10 receptions, 121, 0 touchdowns, still proving that he is still in this league and he's underrated as hell. And also to know that Amir Abdullah had a receiving touchdown as well. And then you look at the Raiders' defense, they did not do much at all other than 1 sack on the game. And then looking at the Broncos here, Bo Nix did not have his prettiest game. He missed a lot of passes, but he didn't throw a single turnover. He threw for 273 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. Rushing for the Broncos was also terrible. And then receiving was led by Courtland Sutton with 8 receptions, 97 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He's really starting to come around since Bo Nix has developed more. And then the Broncos defense was all over the place, getting to Gardner Minshew 5 times in this game and having an interception. So I guess you could say the Broncos defense delivered to expectations, but their offense not so much. But they still got the win, and they are now 7-5. They have been impressive this year. Next game we got is the Cardinals at the Seahawks, and this game was shockingly boring. I didn't think this game would be as boring as it was. Looking at the Cardinals here, Kyler Murray really did not do much. He threw for 285 passing yards, but did throw a pick. And then rushing for the Cardinals was some of the worst rushing I think I've ever seen. And then receiving was led by Trey McBride with 12 receptions, 133 yards, and no score. I gotta say, even though it's his first year in the NFL, Marvin Harrison Jr. has been incredibly disappointing this year. I don't know if it's just me, but he really has not done much this season. I mean, the Cardinals defense had a pretty decent game. They got to Geno Smith 5 times in this game and had an interception. They played their hardest out there. It's just the offense did not do a damn thing. Which leads us to the Seahawks here. Geno Smith had a decent game. 254 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Rushing was also terrible. What's with these teams with terrible rushing this week? Is this starting to become a theme? And then receiving was led by Jackson Smith and Jigba with 6 receptions, 77 yards, and a touchdown. I'm starting to think he's better than DK Metcalf at this point. And then looking at the Seahawks defense, they were just the same as the Cardinals. They got to Kyler Murray 5 times in this game, also having an interception by Kobe Bryant. I mean, I guess the best way you could put it in this game this was a defensive showdown. Both defenses played great. So if you like defensive showdown games, this is the game for you. But if you like a little bit more pop from the offense, and you know this, you can notice the struggles, you can tell that this game was absolutely sluggish, especially by the Cardinals. So yeah, good win by the Seahawks, and I believed in you in this week, and you got it done. So I got a little bit more faith in you guys now. Next game, we got the Niners at the Packers, and this game taught me 2 things. 1 is that the Niners absolutely suck without Brock Purdy, and 2, the Niners still would have sucked with Brock Purdy in this game. The Niners defensively was embarrassingly bad in this game. And also, one thing I want to rant about, Brandon Allen. He's not the worst quarterback in the world, but why did they not start Joshua Dobbs? Did they not see how great he was last season? Did they not rewatch preseason games from the Niners this year? Do they not know that they have a better backup quarterback than Brandon Allen on their team? What are they doing? I'm not even a fan of the Niners, but that, frustrated the hell out of me. I just did not know what they were doing in this game. And also, this could just be an offensive line problem, but CMC has been terrible so far this season when he's been back. I know it's out of the ordinary, but, CMC has not done much at all. Again, could be offensive line problems. Their offensive line is awful, but, it's just crazy to see. And even with all this shit from the Niners, like, George Kittle has still been one of the most consistent players in the league. Like, he's still having, great games. Like, 6 receptions, 82 yards, and a touchdown. Like, surrounded by all this shit. Like, it's impressive. And then, again, like I was just talking about the Niners defense, they did nothing in this game. They were terrible. Other than Leonard Floyd having 2 sacks, they did not do a single damn thing. And then looking at the Packers here, Jordan Love did not have a great game either. 13 for 23, 163 yards, 2 touchdowns. Not a single turnover, but extremely low. Josh Jacobs was the MVP of this game. He led rushing with 26 carries, 106 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He had a great game. And then receiving was led by Romeo Doubs with 3 receptions, 54 yards, not a single score, but Tucker Kraft did have a receiving touchdown. So did Malik Heath. Like, I don't know why I kind of brain farted there, but yeah, Malik Heath had a receiving touchdown as well. And then the Packers defense only had a total of 2 sacks and 1 pick on the day. Like, pretty slow, but they did enough to win. So yeah, big win from the Packers. They are now 8-3. They're sitting pretty nicely in the playoff bracket right now. Like, they're looking good in contention. And also, another thing to say, Niners, you guys are pathetic right now. Next game is the Sunday Night Football game. We got the Eagles at the Rams, and this was actually a pretty entertaining game until the 4th quarter. Before we get to the elephant in the room, let's discuss the Rams here. Matthew Stafford did have a good game, 24 for 36, 243 yards, 2 touchdowns, not a single turnover. Rushing was led by Kyren Williams with 16 carries, 72 yards, and a touchdown. And then receiving was led by Puka Nacua with 9 receptions, 117 yards, no score. Cooper Kupp had a receiving touchdown, and Demarcus Robinson had a receiving touchdown. Also got arrested last night. Like, that's kind of crazy. And then looking at the Rams defense, they really did not do much. They only got to Jalen Hurts once this game, and the secondary did not have a single interception. And then now let's talk about the Eagles. Before we get to the elephant in the room again, let's talk about Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts really had a slow game, 15 for 22, 179 yards, 1 touchdown, no turnovers. He really didn't have to do much because Saquon did everything for the Eagles in this game. Look at these stats. 26 carries, 255 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. He was insane. This was the best game he's ever had in his career. Kenneth Gainwell also had a rushing touchdown, but it completely gets overshadowed by Saquon. Like, he was amazing in this game. And then receiving was led by A.J. Brown with 6 receptions, 109 yards, and a touchdown. And then looking at the Eagles' defense, they got to Matthew Stafford 5 times in this game, really making an impact. So yeah, great game, a pretty fun game to watch, and Saquon had an MVP-like game. Like, he was incredible. And then finally, the last game we had was Monday Night Football. We had the Ravens at the Chargers, and this was a pretty entertaining hardball bowl. Looking at the Chargers here, Justin Herbert threw for 21 for 36, 218 yards, no touchdowns, no turnovers. Rushing was pretty bad to their standards, like, it was really bad, but Justin Herbert and Gus Edwards had rushing touchdowns. And then receiving was led by Ladd McConkey with 6 receptions, 83 yards, no score. And then looking at the Chargers defense, they only got to Lamar once in this game. Also, shout out to the kicker, Cameron Dicker, with kicking 11 points for the Chargers. Like, without him, the Chargers would have done a lot worse. And then looking at the Ravens here, Lamar was shockingly quiet. 16 for 22, 177 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, not a single turnover. Rushing was dominated by Derrick Henry with 24 carries, 140 yards, no score. But Justice Hill had a rushing touchdown, 4 carries for 55 yards. And then Lamar had a rushing touchdown as well. And then receiving was led by Zay Flowers with 5 receptions, 62 yards, no score. But Mark Andrews had a receiving touchdown, and Rashad Bateman had a receiving touchdown. And then looking at the Ravens defense, they got to Justin Herbert 4 times in this game. So yeah, good game, possibly a playoff pre-match here. Like, I could see these two teams facing each other in the playoffs, and yeah, they look pretty good against each other, but the Ravens got the upper hand. And there you guys have it. Those were my Week 12 NFL reactions. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, don't forget to leave a comment, like, subscribe, turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of my videos whenever I post. With all that away, I'm Logan Sharon. I'll see you next time.